All right, welcome back to the Man Cave. I'm your host, Black Irish. Today, we're going to be talking and doing a video review on the Young Turks. Whatever they're going to be talking about, you know it's not going to be fake news in the slightest. It's all about no-fault divorce and why it should be eradicated. Why don't we get started with this?
No-fault divorce is very, very bad.
But I think the reform to no-fault divorce is far simpler. It should be reformed by simply ceasing to exist. Marriage is much more than a contract. It's a covenant.
There are a lot of problems with the current legal structure of marriage. I agree with that critique of the current legal structure of marriage. No-fault divorce is one of the worst things that ever happened to Western civilization.
I think she's entitled to nothing during these proceedings. And I think the problem is no-fault divorce.
I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter.
We got to get rid of no-fault divorce.
Well, Tim Pool, you might be getting your wish because there are Republican lawmakers who are literally working on that type of policy as we speak. So conservative lawmakers in multiple states and on a national level are considering attempts to eliminate or restrict divorces in cases where fault cannot be proven. Right now, laws exist on or in all 50 states that allows people to end a marriage without having to prove that someone in that marriage did something wrong, like cheating or domestic abuse. The socially conservative, though, and often religious members of society have a different idea, right? So right-wing opponents of such laws are arguing that this deprives men of due process and it hurts families. Yeah. In reality, oftentimes, couples that want a divorce don't want to accuse each other of terrible things. They just want to part ways and be done with it. And I don't really see how it's beneficial for society to force two individuals who no longer want to be in a marriage to continue being in a marriage, living under the same roof and being miserable with one another. But nonetheless, many of you have already heard claims from conservatives like Tim Pool who think that it's a bad idea to allow people to have these no-fault divorces. And you're about to hear more. Let's watch.
Well, yes, you are forced to be in a marriage because you signed a contract. It's called taking responsibility. It's called you signed a contract. What real company can you sign a contract with and then break it and then not be, in any way, shape, or form affected for it? Marriage is pretty much, you can choose when you want to be married or not be married. You can choose if you get money or not. You can choose to ruin a family. A lot of people, a lot of women, let's be honest, a lot of women get divorced because they're not happy. No-fault divorce made it easier for people to get out of a marriage. And then at the same time, you don't take it seriously because you can just leave for whatever reason you want. At what point in time do we go back to, yes, we do have problems, we'll work it out because we signed a contract? That's how it used to work. And no one's forcing you to stay under that roof. If you wanted to leave, you could easily go someplace else or leave in another house. If you can't hack it. We're telling people, well, you got married, but if you don't want to live there, you can just leave because it's not fair for you to sign a contract and to be forced to stay there. Sign the contract, honey.
What we're talking about in the American divorce regime is called no-fault divorce, and no-fault divorce is one, a contradiction in terms. You can't get it. You can't break a contract if there's no fault of anyone. And two, it's horrific for children and it's horrific for the spouses.
Marriage is much more than a contract. It's a covenant. To truly go your own way, alone and isolated, is to give up on your duty, your legacy, your ancestors, your bloodline, your civilization, your happiness.
Marriage is a commitment. That commitment is lifelong. There should actually have to be a really, really, really good reason why you are divorcing, and that's particularly true if you have children, because, of course, marriage is designed as the fundamental building block of institutional society. It is the place where children are reared. It is the place where you produce children in the first place, and children require stability.
The traditional response to how you fix marriage is divorce is not allowed.
Okay, but
there's rare circumstances where like a guy is threatening to murder and beating his wife and his kids, and infidelity is one of these things.
No-fault divorce is an absolute tragedy. It is the catalyst for every other degenerate marriage and relationship problem that we have in society.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish the marriage rate drops from what it already is. It's already dropped considerably, but you're going to make it harder for people to divorce. You're going to have more people living under the same roof, having children out of wedlock, which is what conservatives don't want. Like the idea that a couple needs to prove that there's a good reason for them to divorce in order to be able to part ways is ridiculous to me.
Of course it's ridiculous to you. You have a vagina. Of course it does, because it benefits you. See, this is why I tell you that laws will always pander to women. They don't take you seriously. They don't even think you're adult enough to handle the responsibility. So they make sure that it's the easiest thing possible for you to wean yourself out of responsibility. They did it with child support. They did it with taking care of your child. They did it with relationships. Heck, you can't even properly give yourself consent as an adult to have intercourse. They don't, I changed my mind. I wasn't giving consent anymore. So men are held to that standard, but women aren't. If a man doesn't give his consent and you had sex and he changes his mind, guess what? Nothing happens. A DA won't even prosecute women that lie about statutory rape because it'll shame other women from coming forward and telling the truth. Whose fault is that? Do we blame the people who lied? No, it's men's fault. Get out of here. Changing the laws for marriage will make people more responsible. Why do you think all these women were freaking out with abortion? They went ape shit because they basically were trying to go anywhere else so they could be reckless with their vajayjays. I almost said, with their vajayjays. So they can do whatever they want, take a pill, do whatever they want, go extract it from their bodies. There's no responsibility anymore. And we hide behind these buzzwords to make ourselves feel better, saying the only reason why we're doing it is because, the things can happen where it's against their will. Most of the time, it's not. You just make bad decisions. Oh, the man didn't wear a condom. Well, you have birth control. Why didn't you take birth control? Well, I'm allergic. Well, that seems like a personal problem. Maybe, just maybe, if women are getting married, they're actually going to put more effort into who they're getting married with. Especially if you were to change and say you get no money, you're going to start thinking twice about getting married because now there's nothing to happen. Of course, she's going to say, oh, that seems weird to me because you get something for nothing. No one's falling for it anymore.
And this is coming from individuals who purport to want to protect freedom in America. But they're getting involved in literally the most intimate personal decisions that Americans can make about their personal lives. It is insane. In the case of Steven Crowder, by the way, he was bitter after it was exposed that he's pretty abusive to his wife. And yeah, she wanted a divorce. Who wouldn't want a divorce? And by the way, I just want to make clear, in that case, I wouldn't say that it's a no-fault divorce. It seems like there's some evidence indicating that that relationship was not a good one, potentially a very abusive one. And I hope that, she's able to part ways with him and not have to deal with him ever again. Unfortunately, they have children together, but it is what it is. Now, here's Senator J.D. Vance talking about increasing divorce rates back in 2021.
And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they changed their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages. And I think that's what all of us should be honest about, is we've run this experiment in real time, and what we have is a lot of very, very real family dysfunction that's making our kids unhappy.
There are a lot of myths about the divorce rate in America, and it's enraging because it just persists and no one ever really looks into it. So let's talk about what divorce in America really looks like. There was a period of time where divorces experienced a spike. So the divorce rate in the United States increased significantly from 1960, when it was 9.2 per 1,000 married women, to 22.6 in 1980. But by 2022, the rate had fallen to 14.5. Now, there's a reason for that. And it's because of the fact that, people waited longer to get married. I think that has a lot to do with it. So you don't get married when you're super young and you don't even know who you are yet. I think that had something to do with it. But the reason why there was that spike in divorces is because many of those marriages were in fact violent. There was domestic abuse within those marriages. And suddenly you have a situation in which women felt empowered to leave an abusive marriage. So before 1969, when California Republican Governor Ronald Reagan approved the country's first no-fault divorce law, yeah, that Ronald Reagan, he did that, women were often forced to stay in abusive marriages. Between 1976 and 1985, states that passed the laws saw their domestic violence rates against men and women fall by about 30%. The number of women murdered by an intimate partner declined by 10%, and female suicide rates also declined by 8 to 16%. And this impacted children as well, not in a negative way, in a positive way, because they're no longer stuck in a household where they have parents engaging in domestic violence, obviously. Kimberly Well, who's a professor at the University of Baltimore School of Law, says that without such laws, meaning the ability to have a no-fault divorce, it's hard to prove anything in court relating to a family because you don't have any witnesses. It's very difficult to get evidence to show abuse of children. How do you do it? Do you put your kids on the stand? And there were also huge implications for the economic well-being of wives, many of whom stayed home and didn't make money on their own. If they could not prove that their husband had been abusive or persuade him to grant a divorce, they would not be able to take any assets from that marriage or remarry. And that's according to a study that was published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. But some people in the alleged Party for Personal Freedom, which is hilarious to me considering what they're trying to do here, basically want to go back to the dark ages, and they want to go back to an era where no-fault divorces were not allowed, where they were banned.
The only difference is, just saying, women boast about how they are boss babes and they can get to do bad by themselves. They have jobs. They are actually pushed and promoted to go for jobs now because that's the hot button. That's the difference. Back then, the women didn't have jobs. They could get mediocre jobs because their men told them, you lived in a society where they told their women that they couldn't get these type of jobs. Now you have the jobs. You have careers. So you can't worry about the financial part because you already have it. Now, what she won't talk about is the fact that it's a huge jump in between the way things were going back in the 1980s, 70s, and 60s and 2024, where we glorify a woman's empowerment. And as she said, they were empowered to get divorced from abusive relationships. Now, this is why I say they go towards abuse and everything else that's negative to justify taking a man's assets. But what is every video that you always hear from women that do videos like this? Oh, he was abusive. He was abusive. He was abusive. He was abusive. And it usually comes up after they can't come up with the normal narrative that they were pushing out there in the first place. Then it turns in, he was abusive, he was this, he was that, he did all these bad things to me, blah, blah, blah. We hear this so many times that they hide behind it because that's the only way that they're going to survive in this day and age and world. This is what happens. Oh, hey. We got ourselves Deems 15. Thank you for joining the man cave. Just cut right into me, but that's totally chill. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Booker 2, 1977. Good year to be born. Thank you very much for joining the man cave. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. We also got, what is this guy? Vegas TJG. Thank you for joining the man cave. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much.
Republican lawmakers have discussed increasing restrictions on no-fault marriage law, or I'm sorry, no-fault marriage laws, or eliminating them entirely in Louisiana, in Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas. In January, for instance, the Oklahoma State Senator Dusty Devers, it's a fun name, I guess, but he's a far-right Christian pastor who describes himself as an abortion abolitionist, introduced a bill that would eliminate no-fault divorces in his state. Devers wrote last year in a Christian publication that making divorce too easy causes social upheaval, unfettered dishonesty. Let's pause for a second. You want to talk about unfettered dishonesty? What do you think people do when they're in an unhappy marriage and they can't get out of it? You think they're faithful to one another? You think they're honest with one another? You don't think they might want to live double lives because they're stuck in an unhappy marriage by force thanks to the state? Let me continue though.
You know, like I said, the state isn't forcing you to get married. If you want to get divorced, you would just get divorced right here and now, and then at least now men know that you were meant for the streets or that you were there for the money. So your whole argument is just ridiculous. I don't like these type of conversations because it's like we're just so disingenuous with the actual situation, which is you shouldn't be getting a free handout for nothing. I shouldn't pay for your abortion. I don't care if you get an abortion. I could care less. It's not my kid. But I don't feel like paying for it. I shouldn't have to fork up a whole bunch of money for you just existing because you don't feel happy anymore. I shouldn't have to pay for these things. The thing is that it's women and simps that are talking on behalf of women, saying it's not fair that they can't get a free handout anymore. You don't deserve a handout. You deserve to get up on your own 2 feet. Boss babes, pull yourself up on your bootstraps, as some people would say, and move on. Not my problem.
Lawlessness, violence toward women. How laughable is this? War on men and expendability of children. To devalue marriage is to devalue the family, is to undermine the foundation of a thriving society. Unfortunately, this guy's not alone. There are others who feel this way. In 2022, the Republican Party of Texas added this language to its platform. We urge the legislature to rescind unilateral no-fault divorce laws, to support covenant marriage, and to pass legislation extending the period of time in which a divorce may occur to 6 months after the date of filing for divorce. Louisiana Republicans have workshopped a similar proposal, and the Nebraska GOP writes on its website that no-fault divorce should only be accessible to couples without children. I don't understand how children living in a household with parents who can't stand each other and who do not get along is good for the children. It is not good for the children.
Maybe, just maybe, you'll start thinking twice about getting married and take it seriously for once, like our grandparents did. People get divorced too doggone quickly. I'm not happy. I want to get a divorce. No, there should be more than that. No, I'm not happy. Children. This is what I'm talking about. This is the problem. Children are making decisions, and they're allowing children to make decisions as adults.
At all. And if it's abusive, if it's an environment that is full of constant conflict, that's actually incredibly destabilizing for children. I don't understand how anyone can think this is a good idea. Federal lawmakers like J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson, as well as
I know that the way I talk, there's a whole bunch of women that I work with that don't like what I say. I'm sure they come across my videos. I don't really care. You guys co-sign this thing, and if you ain't against this stuff, then pretty much you're the problem.
Former HUD Secretary Ben Carson have also spoken out in favor of tightening divorce laws. At the Republican National Convention back in 2016, delegates considered adding language declaring children are made to be loved by both natural parents, united in marriage. Legal structures such as no-fault divorce, which divides families and empowers the state, should be replaced by a fault-based divorce.
Oh, and so that we have a clear understanding, I'm glad you said by the state. They're not doing this because they give a crap about you. They don't give a crap about the men. They sure as heck don't give a crap about the women. They may be utilizing them because that's free votes. The reason why they do is the drop of population. China's going to this too. Japan's going to this too. They're all going to, when they become more business than family oriented. What happens if you have everyone that's all about business and not about family? Population drops. That is the only reason why they do this. They don't care about you. No matter what country you are from, they don't care. What's important is getting butts in the buckets and asses in the seats. They're doing this because they need to get more bodies. That's it. Don't get it twisted. They don't care about you. They want, because if you're not reproducing, they can't make more money because the next generation isn't going to be working. It's already bad with Gen Z. They're all losing that. So just saying, don't think because they care about you, because you're a Republican or Democrat or whatever.
Again, I really do think that the outcome of this, should these types of laws pass on a state level, it's very unlikely to happen on a federal level. But if they do pass on a state level, I would venture to say that marriage rates in those states will experience a dip, a decline. Because if you know that it's going to be more difficult to divorce your partner, should the marriage end up kind of falling apart, well, maybe you don't want to take that risk of getting married.
Bingo. Or, since you don't want to bring it up, I'll bring it up for you. If you're not going to get anything from it, you'll 100% go the other route and take your time and not do anything. The same thing with child support. How much you want to bet if child support, you didn't get paid by the government and you as a mother were fully responsible for it, how many people do you think will end up having a child recklessly? All you got to do is just take away these things. Take away the state paying for your abortion. That'll stop. That'll gradually start slowing down. You want to start tearing down the whole concept of getting child support and you're responsible, so you're going to pick a good partner. That's going to drop dramatically. You ever want to start the whole no-fault divorces? That weddings are going to drop dramatically. They're already dropping. Men don't want to get married to these women because they know it's a dead on arrival deal. She can say whatever she wants. She's as jaded as the next one. The fact of the matter is, no matter how we look at things, no matter what we say or do, the politicians only make decisions when it benefits them. So understand this. Don't care about you. This isn't about you. This is about them cutting into their money. Because if the next generation cannot work because you're not giving birth to them, guess what? If you're not going to get married, you're not reproducing. If you stay by yourself, you're not reproducing. What happens with that? You're not getting money. So they got to make a deal to themselves to make sure that they continue getting money by basically bringing a law temporarily. Because remember, this may be temporarily if they actually do get it passed, to make sure that their future investments are still going to be there. They don't care about you. They made these laws to break up the nuclear family. They got the money, didn't think about the outcome. Now the outcome is low birth rates. Jeez, we got to do something about that. Let's try to pretend like we're making things fair and fix the problem. This kind of thing, honestly, may help women focus on finding a partner and not just a cash cow.